On today's Minute of the Apes, we have a little bit of housekeeping that we need to tell you guys about so you understand what's going to happen all week long.
Exercise with an ape maker, human down. It talks. There's a divine bound. We are determined to know what the apes want, war or peace.
And if it is man's destiny one day to be dominated, then, oh, please, God, let him be dominated by such as you.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time, and it only takes me 3 times to get through the intro that I can do normally fairly quickly.
That's why they call you Toddy 3 times.
Toddy 3 times, Toddy 3 times. The reason for that, we've actually had to take a couple of weeks off. I stepped away with the family. Richard, of course, always has his stuff going on with the comic book store, but the person with the biggest news, and this is what the tease was about, is while we were away, Sean's wife had a procedure done for her neck. So the reason we're telling you that is it's actually going to affect how we do the podcast for the entirety of this week. So, Sean, why don't you tell us what happened with JJ, and then we'll discuss, how we're going to handle this.
Oh, well, long story short, she had a bulging disc, and so she had to have 3 vertebrae fused, and so she can't pick up anything that's heavier than a gallon of milk, so 10 pounds. So we have a little dog that weighs more than 10 pounds that we have a bed that she cannot get in and out of without us picking her up. So JJ is in the bedroom right now taking it easy, convalescing. And so if you hear a little boop boop, Nala's on the move, that is JJ telling me that I need to pick the dog up and put her down. So if that happens, I'm just going to mute my mic, step away. The conversation will continue, and I'll just hop back in whenever I've helped JJ out.
Can we rephrase that as set Nala down? Put her down is a little hard phrase, referencing a dog. I have to put her down.
Put her down. I keep having the hard part is I have to put her down multiple times a day. It's really tough.
Sean is always a little harsh when it comes to things like that, so be a little more PC. But we just tell you that because, look, we're going to be fighting around that. We want to get back into production, so we're not going to worry about.
To the end.
Yeah, we're not going to worry about editing those kind of things out. We always try to be transparent with everybody, so that's what we're up against. You know about it. We'll remind you every day that, hey, we're still doing it, but let's talk apes. Sean, tell us what's going on with minute 76.
All right, well, this is just a reminder. We're doing the extended version of the movie, the hour 27 and 22-second version. Richard had inadvertently watched the theatrical version, so his start and stop times are different than ours. So his experience is slightly different than ours, and he'll tell us whenever he sees things that we see things that he hasn't seen. All right, we're going to start minute 76 with a guard being defenestrated and ends up with guards being stacked like cordwood.
All right, let's take a listen to minute 76 of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
As of minute 76, we got courtyards with a gorilla, chimpanzees, orangutans, imported apes, Caesars. We've lost apes in the revolution. We've lost humans in the revolution. Poor Armando jumped out a window a long time ago. Wow. It's just it's crazy,
I have to begin by saying I learned a new word this week. When Sean sent the notes, defenestrated, I was like, okay, I'm sure that has something to do with, I actually thought it had to do with maybe being impaled by a shard of glass or something like that. But no, Sean, for those of us like me that learned a new word, what does defenestrated mean?
It means to be thrown through a window.
Why the F did we need to invent a word for that action, which happens so little in life? It's like, what the fuck?
Well, obviously, it was happening so much that they needed to have a word for it.
It almost makes you wonder if maybe it's because of Hollywood's obsession with we need to throw people through windows.
Yeah, people through window for an action sequence.
That somebody, making the call sheet said, today Sean will be, what do we call it, defenestrated.
I learned it back in the 90s, Richard, thanks to you, because of Garth Ennis and Hitman. They had a little secret squad in there called Six Pack, and one of the guy was a takeoff on the Terminator, and he was the defenestrator, and he walked around with a window pane in his hand, and anybody he beat up, he would pick up and toss them through the window.
Man.
Well, it's as early.
He wasn't the Terminator, he was the defenestrator.
It's the earliest use was the 17th century.
Wow. Really?
Throwing something out of a window. Origin, Latin, down. Well, yeah, so modern is modern Latin D for down from, and then fenestrated is for window. So defenestrator, 17th century.
I always
been tossing people out windows.
I always find language really interesting for that reason. You know, like, where does it originate from? Why did we need a term to reference that? But that just seems so obscure of an action.
Really specific, and you have to think about the 17th century. I mean, this is probably like castle windows as opposed to like glass plate windows. I mean,
not like your house. Yeah,
not your house windows. This is actually
glass. Yeah.
So would Brandon Stark have been defenestrated?
Well, he went through a window. I don't know if it necessarily means you have to go through glass or not. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good question. So here we are with language talk of the apes. But
you know what? I take it back. I don't know, because did he technically come into the castle? Was he still outside?
He was in the window. He goes and stops in the window and gets pushed. I think he was defenestrated.
Okay.
This is the definitive defenestrative discussion.
There we go. That's our next podcast. We go through all the movies that have people being thrown through windows and rate that.
Oh, my God. Wow.
That's minute of the window.
So we get a gorilla tossing a guy through a window with this
movie glass.
You know, we talked the previous week how this suddenly became a succession of let's smash
through
glass,
windows,
and it, no one reacting to it. Well, at least this time we get it. The bigger thing for me is that if you freeze the frame when the gorilla throws, his costume pulls back. And with my lovely hairy arm, you can see his hairy arm stops about right here, and there's a big chunk where the makeup didn't apply.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's one of those, especially of that era. We can't ask for anything different of that. They're thinking, hey,
they weren't expecting people to stop it on a frame.
That's exactly it.
To do that, you would.
Oh yeah, there's his hand. There's his arm. There's his arm.
And nowadays, probably, if they saw that, they would send it over to somebody to fix it real
you have
quick.
A digital artist watching frame by frame to potentially paint out any mistakes like that for the most part.
But
obviously, there's something that everybody misses.
To me, that's even. I don't point that out to be nitpicky. I point it out because I find that fascinating that they're like, okay, I think if we went about 6 inches down on the wrist, we'll be real safe. And they think that, and sure enough, jackass throws somebody through the window. Whoop! There it is.
Yeah. So we're going through our budget of movie glass now.
So in this moment, we throw somebody through the glass. Then we go to Caesar leading a group of apes.
We also have the fire in the bookstore.
Yeah, we got Caesar throwing the next shot, just real quick, throwing some fire through another movie glass into the bookstore.
It says bookstore, specifically.
I'm sure the reason they thought the succession of that is, we're breaking the establishment, we're burning the buildings. And again, they were trying to emulate footage from the riots that they were seeing in the news, and I think they do a really good job of it. And I'm sure that in that riot footage, a lot of glass is breaking as they burn buildings. So surely that's why they do it. But what I was getting to is after we do these things,
we get the stormtroopers.
Well, okay. So there's a couple of things here. This becomes one of those incredibly frustrating movie attempts at action. So we get Caesar. You have a little alleyway. You have an alleyway of sorts, I guess is the best way I can say it. And he runs out and does a ooh, 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 and to attract the guards in. And he stands alone in that alleyway as the guards come to him. Well, to Sean's point, they are the stormtroopers because here it is. It's not point blank range, but it's just about point blank range. And these dumbasses can't hit Caesar at all. First off, what's Caesar's plan when he's standing there and the guards are coming at him?
I can count at least 7 of them. I'm going to say at the farthest, they're 50 feet away from him, and not one of them can shoot him.
And there's probably, I would say, 5 to 6 shots that go off before the apes swarm in on the sides of him.
Yeah.
So it's a little crazy. This is even when I sat and watched it last night. As my child, by the way, was like, could you hurry up and make your notes? Because I really want to watch Catching Fire. She's obsessed again with Hunger Games movies. I'm like, hey, I'm watching Apes, get out. But I watched it. I thought, am I being too nitpicky about this because I'm watching it 1 minute at a time? But I think that even if I saw this for the first time, I'd be like, what?
So real quick, your daughter's watching Catching Fire. Is she going to watch the prequel, the Halt and Catch Fire?
Wow.
Okay, anyways.
You get the old man joke of the day.
This she can then watch the prequel, Chariots of Fire.
Wow, you get the second dad old man joke of the day. But that's good, boys. That's very good. So we've digressed off to Hunger Games movies, but
you're right. So there was really no need to stage a trap for a group of guards to walk into. It was kind of unnecessary. We had the showdown, earlier in the plaza. And you could have just easily seen them run towards a street and then the apes come from behind. I don't know why we need it's filler. It's a filler moment.
But then you get a bullshit movie moment where Caesar shoots his gun and starts fire. Bullets are non-ferrous material. They don't cause sparks. So anytime you see a movie where somebody's shooting a gun and it hits metal and you see a spark, that's just to show you, that somebody's shooting a little paint gun kind of thing that shoots a little spark pellet. So anytime you see somebody shoot a car and hits the gas tank and explodes, that doesn't happen because a bullet doesn't cause a spark. So that always pisses me off. So Caesar did, it's defying physics and making gasoline that, again, maybe this is a gasoline they set up at the beginning of the movie not the beginning of the movie, when they were doing the beginning of the revolution. But if that had been there this long, it would have evaporated by now. But again, we get magic bullets that cause sparks and flames that have fuel coming from nowhere. Anyways, back to the discussion.
Well, do we start? Go ahead.
No, please, Richard, go ahead.
Do we start the bonfire in this moment, or
well, they come and beat the crap out of the guards, but they leave them alive, nicely enough.
Yeah, they just kind of stack some bodies. It was weird, stack bodies on top of each other, why would they even need to get the bodies out of the way? Just leave them on the ground.
Well, and I agree.
Yeah, the apes beat the guards and then run off around the flames, but the guards are still alive because you can see them falling over and holding themselves and moaning and stuff. Is that in your version, Richard?
Yeah, but then we see a line of 4 or 5 guards, and one ape drops a guard on top of the other apes, as if they're stacking bodies.
Yeah.
Well, and if we can go back before that occurs, towards the end of the minute, the whole thing with Caesar running to the alley and attracting attention, I get what they're trying to do, which is the idea of over here, so the apes on either side can swarm.
Can ambush them,
but it's, and again, I don't want to beat up a film that had to be shot in less than 6 weeks. I don't want to do that to it, but it's so oddly told because we don't have the shot of Caesar. We don't have a positive shot of Caesar where we see him in the camera waving and doing this. We only get this backward shot as they run toward it. And even in that, there are so many things about it that it's a non-threatening moment. Number one, they can't shoot. Number two, they're too far away from them. Number three, they never acknowledge and say, go get him. They don't do that. You build that, you construct that kind of moment so it's a